Good morning. Little audio technical. Good morning.
Hi.
How are you this morning? Little technical difficulties this morning. Viewpoint, program personality, politicians, and perspective. And we have two certainly this morning. It's nice to leave the politicians out. They have personalities certainly and perspective.
Well, they wouldn't demur at leaving you out, you know.
Yeah,
So don't feel you're being rude.
Yeah, hell no. Well, it's nice. We'll make nice now until maybe just a little bit before the November elections. Then we'll start getting on them again soon enough. What do you got to say this morning?
Oh, well, now tonight at Lincoln College in Lincoln,
I
America.
heard about that.
Yeah, I bet you did. They're having college jazz.
Oh, that'll be good.
All the jazz
Scotty Wolver does a
aficionados.
good job. We have some good musical students there, and we're just getting gooder all the time.
Good.
Yeah. So they'll enjoy that, folks. 7:30 tonight at the Lincoln College.
In the Johnson Center.
Johnson Center, right.
Very, very
lovely
good.
auditorium. Mm-hmm.
And the honor flight
Yes, coming in.
on the 29th.
Going out, that is, before they're coming in. They're going to take a...
Well, they do both the same time.
Yeah, same day. About 88 veterans. And I'm intrigued to know that this time we're going to include some Vietnam veterans.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Ladies, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
They got the short end of the stick. They really
So,
did.
Well, I lived through that period, so.
Pardon?
I lived through that period of Vietnam, so.
Yeah,
well,
Very glad to hear that.
yes.
we're tickled to death. That's on April 29th. So go down to the Capitol Airport, folks. Get there around 7:15 or so. No later. You're going to have a little trouble finding a spot to put your chair down. Welcome those guys home. What else you got there, my dear?
Well, the covered wagon is back up and still not running.
Well,
it doesn't go anyplace, but it's up.
Well,
and I think that's nice. You know,
oh, they did a good job. I saw it the other day.
that nice man had that built for the town, and then of course the weather is
Rough winter for it. Yeah.
Oh, holy! It was
Well,
a
Mr.
rough
Mr.
winter
Van
for
Bibber.
everybody, including Abe Lincoln up there on the wagon.
Gary Van Bibber popped 10 big ones to get that in here.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal. So I happened to be going out to the Legion to take a flag out there to be put it in the box for it to be burned, and that was the day that they were putting that thing back up together. So I walked over there. Big job. Nicely done.
Nice job.
Oh, some kudos. Chris Grau is putting together an invitational barbecue contest. And that's going to be nice. They're going to hold it out there at the Grau Automobile Complex. They handle so many General Motors contracts, I can't remember what all they are. General Motors still makes good cars, do they not?
That's what they told
They
me.
sure do. They sure do. Anyway, nice to have that. And you opened up the Palms Grill yesterday. It was a big official
Yes.
opening.
Yes.
Hope that went well.
By all accounts that I've heard, it did. Well, we had lunch there. It was fantastic. Free
Well, that's
cupcakes and
gonna-
all.
Well,
Free
it's nice.
cupcakes,
It's
and
nice.
she makes
They were
good
really
cupcakes.
good.
It's
She
just
does.
nice to have that in a small community like this. That's kind of a linchpin if you have a nice place like that. So it's neat for a small community to have that. And let me see. Oh, the folks who showed up last Sunday morning at the Legion for the Humane Society breakfast, thanks to them, they turned out a nice crowd. So it's a great thing. Maybe we ought to get down to business.
Okay, yeah, that would be just as well. With summer coming, we are going to have a couple programs talking about things that are available for adults and kids both in our area. And we're starting with Rachel Neisler and Cathy Maciariello. How's that, Cathy?
That was
That
really
was
a big
really good.
improvement, Judy. I'm proud of
Do
you.
you like that better than
Much
marshmallow?
better than marshmallow.
See, I call her Cathy.
Marshmallow.
I call her Cathy Marshmallow because I'm always afraid I'll mispronounce her real name. Cathy and Rachel are both Atlanta girls. Somehow Cathy lives in Atlanta by way of New York and Italy. How does a nice girl from New York and Italy come to Atlanta?
Well, it helps that I was born here.
Ah, you're home again, home
So
again.
I'm home again. You know how they
Jiggity
say you
jig.
can't go home again. It's not
But you
true.
did.
You
But
can.
did, yeah.
Good for
certainly
you,
can.
and good for us as
I
well.
want to say we're very happy to have her.
Yeah, oh, she's an
Well,
asset. She's a mover and shaker. She really is. She'd give your dad a run for his money, Rachel.
She does sometimes.
I think so. I think so. Now, these girls are the program directors at the Atlanta Library, and if you've never seen the Atlanta Library, it's a treat because it's a different thing. We're proud in Lincoln, of course, of having a Carnegie Library, and that's a very nice thing. But this one in Atlanta is unique.
It is. It is the only octagonal library in the state of Illinois, and it is fully funded by the citizens of Atlanta.
Now, I say that again. I want to, because the reason I heard it, but I wanted to make sure everybody understood that fully funded
Fully
by the
funded
citizens of
by
Atlanta.
the citizens of Atlanta.
That's pretty significant.
Tax-wise,
Tax-
Yes,
Tax-wise,
through
yes.
tax money. People ask us all the time if it's a Carnegie Library because it's the way it's constructed and the kind of prominence of the physical structure.
Yes, it is
Make
unique.
people it recalls that period and it has some similarities to the library in Lincoln, but in fact it was not. It was built with local resources, and there is another library built by the same architect in El Paso, and I can't remember. It's
El Paso, Illinois?
El Paso. I don't know if
It's
that's
not
it's not
octagonal.
exactly octagonal, but it's an interesting shape.
Uh-huh.
You know, so it's
you know,
How's-
it must be very unique to have a library that is funded by the citizens. You must be one of just a handful.
I couldn't say. I couldn't speak to
well,
that
I
fact.
think it's you know, especially libraries that were built during that period of land grants and you know when land grant universities were built. I think there may be more of them than one thinks, and many of them fall under taxing bodies, you know, and are not nonprofit organizations in their own right, but fall under government entities. I think it's probably fairly common. I mean, there are a few private libraries as well in large cities, but
The Lincoln one is supported by tax money of the people in the city, and then the people outside the perimeter of the city can pay a fee to
Same
belong
with
to the
us.
library. When you think of, and as I'm sure
Which
you
is
do
fair.
all the time, think of what a book costs. To pay that fee isn't so expensive. You could maybe get 2.5 books, and what good's a half a book gonna do you?
Well, and you know, the nice thing about the library system in Illinois is that if you have a library card in any library in the state, you can use it in any other library.
Mm-hmm.
And if you, for example, if you're visiting someone in Chicago and you check out a book and you come home and you still have the book with you and would like the book to go back, you just bring it to us and it goes back through the
pretty
Indian
neat.
library,
Send it back.
and we can
Mhm.
send it back for you. So it's very convenient. People don't realize the breadth of resources that they have access to as a result of
All you
having
need
a
is
library card.
Yeah.
Now, how about Bill? Just one more thing, and then I'll give you a turn. Okay. Sometimes I'm so rude to him, and he's such a nice man. Now, about like Rolling Prairie and these sort of things that people, that libraries have access to. Do you do that kind of memberships?
We don't at the moment.
Uh-huh.
But that doesn't mean we
Doesn't
won't in
mean
the
we
future.
won't. Yeah.
Never
Probably
know.
maybe not a need at this
Now
point
take a
in time.
turn, Bill. Go ahead.
Duh. Well, I voiced a little surprise that the citizens are the sole supporters of the I guess it's because it's a small community complex that we think of. And Judy and I have a great thing about the little communities surrounding Lincoln, of how important they are, not only to the county but to the citizens who live there. So I guess I was a little bit surprised, but I shouldn't have been, that the citizenry up here are the sole supporters of your nice little library.
Mm-hmm.
And Go ahead.
We're really proud of our community and our citizens and grateful to them because you may not know that we've just been going through a really large
Yes.
renovation, which we will
Yes.
have our grand opening on Memorial Day. We'll actually be
Rededication and an open house.
rededication and open house. We'll actually be opening on Monday to the public, but we could only do that because the citizens of our community voted last April to increase the tax levy for the library.
They thought enough of it
So
to
we,
do that.
so they thought enough of our programs to do that, and, thankfully, they are enabling us to fix some kind of old, broken down facilities, that hadn't had attention since the 70s, and we hope they're going to be really excited when they see what we've done inside. We think
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Good for you, good for you.
Well, it's neat for these small communities to have down in Elkhart, they have a lovely little library.
Yeah.
Just really a neat little place. Right over here west, over then we have the Whistle Stop, is that what they call it?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Cathy took that old railroad station, the depot, made it in almost single-handedly with some volunteer help, but that's neat for that community to have that facility too.
Since you're the program directors, let's talk about the programs that you have upcoming for the summer season when everybody is, or at least we hope that come summer we'll have a little more personal freedom to do other things. It never happens.
I
but-
think summer's over, we're starting winter again now.
It seems like it.
Yeah, really.
Summer was last week. We're moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah, last week, right.
Well, Rachel, why don't you start talking about the museum, because
Yeah, that's kind of coming up first. We're opening officially on May 4th, that first Monday in May. I, of course, am always available to open it up for anyone who wants to get in beforehand, and all you have to do is ask for me at the Palms Grill or at Dad's office there at Telia Logic.
Or at the library.
Or at the library, yeah, which is currently closed, but, and it'll be open Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then we're still working on Tuesday and Thursday. But definitely Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 9 to 4 every day. And it's free admission, open to the public. And we've got some new exhibits coming, so that's exciting.
and it's totally staffed by volunteers.
By volunteers,
So
yes.
if there's anybody who
myself.
really would like to give 3 hours or so.
3.5 hours of their time.
Once a
and
week, we'd love to
If
hear
you're a
from
little
you.
interested in Atlanta history or want to know more, I would certainly help you out with that. So.
Yeah.
Well, I
I'd volunteer your dad, but his got a...
His days
he
are a
has
little full.
He's got a lot of orders
right
in the water.
now.
Is he
Talk
still
about a
driving
full
that- is
dance
he-
card.
Speaking of museums, is he still driving that museum car?
Oh, yes.
What's
yeah.
that, 36 or
It
37?
is a 1940 Plymouth.
40.
Yes.
It's almost as old as I am.
I'm not going there.
Does he collect
No.
antique cars? No.
No. He just has the one.
He just collects one.
Just the one.
Okay.
And he takes very good care of it.
Okay.
He'll probably have it out and running pretty soon once it gets
He-
a little more consistently warm.
You know, the
But-
last time we saw you, you had with you some Ku Klux Klan
Yes.
garments or costumes, whatever they term them. And you were talking about the Ku Klux Klan
And here it is
in
again.
its era.
In the Logan County, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it was certainly a different thing here at that time than this Hanyak that decided that he had to kill these people.
Yeah.
So you'll be having your Ku Klux Klan, I suppose, exhibits at your museum.
Probably not this summer. Right now, we don't have like the facilities to really display those.
Yeah, we
the way
have to
they
remember,
should
that's
be.
that's so unique, it has to be protected.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's really unique.
They degrade very quickly, and we're fortunate that they were in the shape that they're still in today.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that they don't fall apart any more than they already have. So we want to make sure that our facilities are up to snuff before we really present them to the public.
So now, what kind of theme are you going to start with in the museum?
For the new exhibits,
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it'll go along with the library renovation. We'll have a small exhibit on Seward H. Fields, who had a huge role in getting the library building initially started back in 1907, 1908, when they started building. He was the one who deeded the land to the city for the library to be built on, and he also donated his personal library to the city library to be available to the public after he died. And then, of course, we'll have one about the library building itself and the many renovations that it's gone through and how it came to be and the role of Atlanta citizens in its being and formation. And then that somewhere along those lines. That's the direction I'm headed in.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Right now I'm a little preoccupied with the renovation, so I don't have a lot of time to fully develop my plan.
Well, and summer's often a time when we plan for the coming year.
For the coming year, yeah.
Most of the library's programs in the summer, for example, are aimed at children. Our adult programming will end really in a couple of weeks. We had our last senior program yesterday, which was about container gardening, and we had folks from Knee Pagans came down and we talked about making glorious containers. We have a presentation on human trafficking on May 19th with Charlene Watt, who's from the Crossroads Free Trade Store in Bloomington. And we're finishing up our book group.
And that kind of goes along with our book group,
It goes
right?
along with our Worldviews book group, where every year we tackle an issue of international significance. This year we've been reading about women in many cultures. Last year we read about the Holocaust, and we had somebody from the University of Illinois come and talk about preserving memory and preserving history through memory and through storytelling. So those programs will be coming to an end, and then we'll kick off programs for children in the summer. We have a 3-week art camp. This year we'll have a week of music composition, and kids will work with a composer to learn rhythm and improvisation, and they will make instruments, and they will compose music on found instruments. We have a week of theater, and we have a week of visual art. And then we, of course, have, like all libraries in the state, our summer reading program for 6 weeks for children.
I want to talk about the involvement of your youngsters, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to involve our sponsors for a few seconds. Then we're going to get back, and I do want to talk about the age groups and your youngsters here. Right back live in the studios here at Viewpoint. Got two very interesting guests right here in the backyard of Atlanta. Cathy Provolone. And Rachel Neisler. That's good. Nicely. Seriously, ladies, we were talking about the programs involving the youth of your community. Tell me about the general age groups, the youngsters that take advantage of what you have to offer.
It's a range. We have several programs, for example, and we're trying to build the spectrum of activities so that it reaches across all age groups. Right now, we're most active with younger children. We have during the school year, we read in the preschool classes every Friday. Rachel's one of our readers. I read. We have a whole corps of volunteers who go in and read to the kids. Then we host them twice a year at the library. They come, they walk up and have their field trips and snacks and get to play around and learn how the library works. We also participate in the third, fourth, and fifth grade writing contests, young authors. Actually, I think it goes down to K. I think it's like K through 5. They have a young authors competition that's they participate in a national competition, and we judge the stories, and then we host an event where the classes, all the participants walk up to the library, and the winners of the competition read their stories, kind of like a Barnes & Noble author event. And we have a homework lab after school for
help with tutoring
for 4th and 5th graders.
Wonderful.
So those are the kind of the service programs. Then we also offer during the year, every Thursday night, a reading and art night.
Once a month.
Once a month. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's once a month. A reading.
I'm not that ambitious.
reading and art night, where the kids come and they read stories and hear stories and do artistic work. And then our big event during the summer is this arts camp, and that is open to kids who have finished first grade through fifth grade. And we divide them into two groups, and they work with professional artists, and at the end of each week they either do a performance or have an exhibit of their artwork, and that keeps them busy. And then we start our summer reading program, which is once a week for 6 weeks, where they have all kinds of reading contests. And so we're building, programming. Before, about 2 or 3 years ago, we really didn't do much programming, and so we've been building, and we're kind of taking it sequentially, across the age groups. Rachel's been working. You might want to talk about what you're working on at the museum for the classrooms.
I started talking with primarily the 4th and 5th grade teachers at Olympia South Elementary School to develop classroom kits that are developed by the museum that teachers can bring into their classroom to use as lessons and tie in the history of Atlanta with whatever they might be learning about. In 4th grade, for example, they do a very large Abraham Lincoln Civil War study. And of course, Atlanta, like any town in this area, has its own Lincoln story.
Sure.
So we're utilizing that so that we can start to build those connections with kids and their community really early on, not only through the library, but through the museum and in the classroom as well. So.
But how brilliant, really, to get these youngsters involved. Nobody gets any younger,
Right.
And finishing first grade is a nice place to start with these kids, because the library will become part of their life.
Exactly.
That's what we hope.
We hope. I mean, that's our goal. I think the little subtitle we have is the Atlanta Public Library and Museum, a gathering place for people of all ages. So that's our
That's very
goal.
nice.
Perfect.
And you talk about the birdhouse, because we also are trying to do intergenerational programs. So talk about the Purple Martin Project.
As one of our dinner programs, which is what, the KKK program that we were
Yes.
talking about
Yeah.
the last time I was in is part of that series. We did a research project on one of Atlanta's prominent citizens, John Dowdy, who was a cement worker, basically, but he laid all the sidewalks in Atlanta. He laid probably 60% of the foundations of all the early homes that are mostly still standing in Atlanta right now. But he also built Purple Martin birdhouses. And for those of you who don't know, Purple Martin is kind of like a sparrow or a starling, and they unfortunately are no longer in this area due to habitat decline and things like that. But there is a specific type of birdhouse that you can build to attract them back. So I went to, in the process of talking with these 4th and 5th grade teachers, I went to them and asked them if they had students who would be interested in doing research on Purple Martins to find out what type, how the houses need to be built, what we need to do to take care of them, where they should be placed so that they will be most attractive to these birds, things like that. And I had a group of about 6 or 7 students decide to participate in that. And then my father went out and found hobbymen in the community who would build these houses from the plans that these 5th
Kids
graders researched for them. So we are in the process of getting those erected on the grounds of the library. That's kind of one of the more open spaces in town. So hopefully by the end of May, those will be up, and we will be bringing Purple Martins back to Atlanta, Illinois.
And the kids actually came and presented at the Palms Grill at one of the dinner
presented
programs.
their
So it was
research
very
The kids
cool.
did that themselves?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That is, well,
Brought
and
their
that
families.
fits your
It was very nice.
intergenerational
Well,
thing
yes,
so
exactly.
nicely too. And that's a nice idea, because like my folks are gone now, and every once in a while, someone will say something, or you'll see something or read something, and you think, boy, I wish I could ask my grandma about that, or I wish I could ask my mom about that. And to establish that kind of relationships with these kids is a good idea, because they don't realize it now, but the day will come when they'll think, boy, I wish I'd asked my grandma some more about that.
Well, you know, it's interesting because libraries, like a lot of institutions, are having to change dramatically during, as a result of the technological revolution. And, the idea of going 2 or 3 times a week to the library with your grandmother to pick out books is not as relevant to some of the kids today as it used to be. So we're really devoted to books. We love books, and we want to promote our collection at the library, and we want to develop a collection that's appealing to the public. But we also realize that we have to make things accessible to people electronically, so we've done a lot of technological upgrades at the library. But we also need to link books with these kinds of learning experiences that are hands-on, that are relational, that build a sense of community, so they know
community and importance.
What it's about, to have this kind of anchor in your community. So we have a very broad definition of learning.
Yes.
I'm just sitting here thinking, those of us who were fortunate enough to be brought up in less frenetic times had tighter ties to our grandparents simply by the virtue of the fact they didn't have all this electronic stuff to keep it,
to distract you.
And we were at home more, and we were in the midst of our adults, and that's not a bad thing.
Not at all.
No.
Not at all.
I was very interested during the break in your talking about the adult programs that you'd been having, and I realize that the one is coming to a close now, the other has already closed, but I think it might give people a flavor of the kinds of programming that they can look forward to in the future, because these are the kind of interests that you're presenting. Could you tell us a little bit about the adult programs you've had for this year?
Sure. They, again, run a gamut. We have typical programs like reading groups, and we've had a couple this year. We have a program called Worldviews, in which each year we choose a topic of world significance and explore that through the reading, primarily the reading of fiction. Although this year we did read a bit of nonfiction, and last year we studied the Holocaust. This year we've been looking at the lives of women in cultures around the world. And as part of that program, we usually have a public program with a speaker. This year it will be Charlene Watt from the Crossroads Free Trade Store in Bloomington, and she's coming on May 19th to talk about the tragedy of human trafficking. I mean, there are more than 2 million men, women, and children who are being trafficked for sex and slavery around the world. So we'll be addressing that issue. We just finished a 10-week reading group called Spirit Guides, which was an exploration of great theological writing from ancient times to the present. And we're always thinking up ideas for reading groups, so we're open to suggestions from the public as well. We also have one of our flagship programs is called Behind the Scenes, and that's a series of gatherings at the North Greens Golf Course in Atlanta with artists of national and international significance. We've had musicians, a number of people from the theater community. We just had our most recent guest who concluded the season was Robert Lapone, who was in the original cast of A Chorus Line and the original cast of Jesus Christ Superstar, both the film and the play. He was on The Sopranos, and so we have really exciting, interesting people who come and talk about their lives. We have a senior program where we do all kinds of things, everything from art to container gardening, which we just finished, and we had one of our most fun this year was we called it the Ultimate Checkout, and it was about preparing yourselves and your family for the time when you leave this world, and making it easy on your family.
But very
I love
important.
it. I know.
Very important. And
Well,
so we have a wide range of
that
things
is a
we
really
do.
very, very important thing. Just, we all like to put that on someday. Well, some days, one of these days, it's going to be here, and we all need to be thinking in terms of
People
that.
said afterwards, they said, "Oh, you should do this every year." So we
Well, really, because every year I don't know about you, but every year I get older and closer to the ultimate checkout. You know, we're in the checkout generation, aren't we, Bill?
No.
Well, you know,
Speak for myself.
No, speak for yourself. You know, you're talking about your guest artists and so forth you've had at North Greens. I remember very, very engaging, nice young man who played cello. That was up there a couple of years ago.
yeah, that was Misha Isterman. Yeah.
And I thought that was very neat. Plays with the Pittsburgh Symphony.
We'll be having him back, actually. I've been talking with him about trying to have him come back, and if not
I was
this
very
coming year,
impressed by
the
him.
following year. Yeah.
What does somebody from the Pittsburgh Symphony say to you when you call and invite them to Central Illinois?
Well, the lucky thing
He
so
had a-
far
he
is
had
they're
a
all
tie.
my
That's why
friends.
Cathy
They're-
is such an asset.
They're all my friends, and I call them. They all say yes. I mean, what can
I-
we say?
Really?
And I was just trying to put it together. Are you the young lady that contacted him?
Yes.
That's what I got. I was sitting here thinking.
Yeah,
I
we've
believe
been
that
friends
Cathy,
for years. And,
yeah,
and-
very nice young man.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, I don't know, one of these days I'll run out of famous friends, but, you know,
Very
for
talented.
You
now,
don't know the difference.
For
Well, you
now,
can
anyway.
recycle.
Well, I thought it
But
was
you
pretty
know-
interesting. You had a pretty good turnout for a cello player,
yeah.
mind you, here in the middle of Abesville.
Well, that's one of our goals,
thought it was
is to
pretty neat.
introduce new experiences and
Little-
lift those experiences for our communities. So.
You know, and to provide access to, you know, knowledge and information that, you know, people might not otherwise have, you know, on their own. So it's been a blast.
Well, this trafficking thing, you hear about it
Oh,
time
my.
and again. How wonderful that you're really getting into it in depth, because I'm afraid most of us just skip over the top of that. Every story that you hear, every news item that you come upon, you think, oh my gosh, and then you just go on.
Well, you know, it is important to me too, particularly because when I was living in Italy, one of my good friends there was from the Ukraine, and she was a victim of human trafficking, and she had left her native land at the age of 18 or 19, you know, for a so-called better life, and arrived in Naples with no Italian or anything, and discovered the situation that she was being placed in, which was essentially being placed as a prostitute, working in a local bar. And luckily, you know, one of my husband's friends got to know her and sort of rescued her from that situation, and you know, she's doing great. But you know, it's a lot closer than you think.
Yeah, I just saw in this morning's paper somewhere over in Africa. Where to see? They kidnapped 100 ladies.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, things aren't going to go good for them at all. You know, sometime down the road, Judith, we ought to get this young lady back and talk about her time in Italy.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Well,
Yeah,
that's
we
what
want
I
to-
wanted her to come for to
You
tell.
need about 3 days, probably.
Okay, well, by George, I've got him.
No, that'd be fun. I'd love it.
We'll do it.
It reminds
Make
me,
a note.
during the World War II, as George Goebel says, you read about that, it was in all the papers.
It was in all.
Anyway,
Love that.
we had one of the great cartoonists at the time, Bill Malden, who did this thing up front, and it was this like some little village in Italy, and Willie and Joe were walking through the rain and everything, and every kid in the picture, and there were a number of them, looked exactly like Willie or Joe, and the caption was, "I think this is the town the old man says he was in during World War I."
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
There's a project for you. We're just off the top of whatever I have up here. To maybe put together a program about that particular generation, World War II era, the 1940s, for your youngsters here.
I need to before it disappears.
Yeah.
You're ahead of me. Okay. Well, good
Our
for you.
problem usually is that we have more ideas than we can humanly execute. There's
Well,
just
are
two
you
of us,
are you the
unfortunately.
entire committee of programming?
Yes,
Do we have the whole committee?
You have
Committee of the whole.
you have the leadership, but we have an incredible
Oh,
group of
yes.
volunteers. Actually, I
Very
can't
dedicated.
say enough about the volunteers. We have a youth programs committee at the library. We have people who help with the reading and art nights and are taking charge. I have a whole group of people who do the cooking for behind the scenes, because when we do those events, we have a reception beforehand with free wine and food, and then we have the program. So, I mean, we couldn't even begin to do what we do without our volunteers. They're just terrific.
but just
I
And
was-
the whole museum is staffed by
Yeah.
volunteers.
I'm with you. I love volunteers.
Well, this is Mrs. Volunteer to start with,
Yeah.
as you might well know.
At the hospital, that's the department I work in, and I tell any new volunteer, you'll be so glad you came, because you're only going to meet wonderful people, because mean-spirited, selfish people don't volunteer.
No, you're absolutely right.
So
No,
it's always just
narcissism doesn't
wonderful.
fit in. No, that doesn't fit in at all.
No, no, volunteers are A1.
Would you girls like to finish up, wrap up our morning, either or both, with some comments about this summer, how we're shaping up, and with the particular reference to your opening date now after you've done so much nice work on this library building?
Yeah, again, the library is going to be open to the public this Monday, April 21st. You can come back in, start checking out books, return all the ones that you've been hoarding for the last
And
3
we
months.
have amnesty. for
Yes,
all-
it is
all books.
Amnesty April.
Good.
We will not charge any late fees for the next month, probably, as those books come in. But then we will be doing our grand rededication of the library, followed by an open house Memorial Day Monday at 1 p.m. after all of the more traditional services for that day.
And I think people will be really pleased by what's happened if they remember what the basement of our library was. It used to house the museum back in the
Yeah.
day, and it was pretty decrepit down there, and it's now been transformed into a beautiful new children's library space dedicated just for children. We have a little kitchenette down there so we can better serve them. Upstairs we have stripped all the old 1970s orange carpet and restored all the wood floors. We've put gas in the old electric fireplace, so we'll have a beautiful adult reading room where people in the winter can come and turn on the fireplace and have a cup of coffee, and
Everybody has their own space. now.
everybody has their
Yeah.
own space. And
Your basement used to be about as inviting as a dungeon.
yes, well now it's beautiful, bright yellow, lovely carpet.
Much
we're
warmer,
just,
much
it's so
warmer.
much nicer. So we hope people will be excited, and we're holding a few things back that we won't install until the
Until the
dedication
dedication.
weekend, so that there'll be some surprises for people. But we hope they like what they see. We're really happy with it.
And then, of course, keep an eye out for more information about the summer arts camps and summer reading program.
Yeah.
That should be
Excellent.
Well, you've got some
coming to your
exciting
local
things going on.
newspaper and radio any
Yeah.
day now.
Exactly. Well, and I'm hoping to do a community-wide online survey during the summer to try to collect information about program interests from everybody in the community. So watch for that too.
Great.
Very, very neat. Ladies, we appreciate your time coming up here this morning and visiting with us about what you have going on over here in this great library. We appreciate the fact that you commit yourselves so much to your community. That's very, very important. And speaking of the loaning of books and so forth and library fees, I came up with a quote by a French poet, journalist, and novelist, Antoine France, I guess. And he said, never lend books. Nobody ever returns them. The only books I have in my library are those which people have lent me. Thank you for Viewpoint.
I think that's why it's called.